My fiancée left me for a break. Now she's stalking me, and I've moved on. I was 34 when everything started falling apart. Sarah and I had been together for 5 years. We'd met through mutual friends at a weekend barbecue, a casual gathering that didn't hint at life-changing consequences. We'd hit it off immediately. One of those rare moments when conversation flows, laughter comes easy, and there's a spark you just know is different. I remember the way she leaned back in her chair, twirling a piece of straw in her hand, eyes bright and curious, and I thought at that moment, this is someone special. A few hours and 3 empty plates later, I walked away from that party feeling like I'd met someone I would remember forever. Over the next few weeks we texted, we talked for hours on the phone, we went out dancing, watched movies in her living room until sunrise, and we fell into a rhythm so natural it felt like memory. We planned trips, one spontaneous long weekend to the coast, hikes in the hills, small solo adventures that felt celebratory just because they were together. We cooked meals in our shared kitchen, traded stories about childhood embarrassments, collected inside jokes that became shorthand for affection. I remember waking on lazy Sunday mornings, the house quiet except for sunshine streaming in, and she'd lean over and sip her coffee next to me, smile soft and warm. The world felt good and steady, like we were building something real. Like any couple, we had our ups and downs. There was one fight in particular about 2 years into the relationship that really shook me. It stemmed from something stupid, an argument over where to spend the holidays, whether to stay in town with my family or go somewhere with hers. I said something careless, she retaliated. Bite for bite until finally she stood up, packed a duffel bag in the hallway, and said she needed time to think. That night, I stood in our tiny kitchen, the smell of burnt toast lingering in the air, listening to the echo of slammed doors. The pain cut deep. I remember pacing back and forth, staring at the fridge, thinking how someone could walk away from everything we'd built in that moment. Yet, 5 days later, maybe 6, she came back. Fragile, apologetic, tears in her eyes. We talked late into the night, more quietly but more honestly than ever before. We realized we held too tightly, avoided too many conversations, withheld too much. We made a promise to be more open, more patient, more willing to be vulnerable. That healing felt like rebirth. After reconciling, we decided we were done running from tough conversations. That was the moment I secretly began saving for a ring. We both felt ready for the next step. Around my 34th birthday, ready to leap, I finally took the plunge. I found a modest fixer-upper on the edge of town, nothing flashy, but with a yard big enough for a garden, enough room for future kids, a dog someday. It had a high-ceiling living room and a fireplace perfect for cozy nights. I let my mind wander, planning how I would propose. The idea crystallized. On our anniversary, after dinner at home, I would get down on one knee by the fireplace, tell her how much she energized my life, hand her the keys to the house, and ask her to spend forever with me. I rehearsed it in my head daily. The moment she'd open the box and the shock would settle into yes. I bought a modest ring that felt perfect, excited and nervous in equal measure. I woke up each morning picturing a future with her filling every room in that house. All the planning felt sweet, hopeful, like something solid and sustainable. My heart felt full in a good way, like holding an entire universe. Then, without warning, something shifted. Not catastrophically, not even dramatically. It started small, imperceptible at first. Our evening dinners, once filled with chatter and warmth, turned quiet. She'd tap her glass of wine, staring out the window instead of telling me about her day. The playful texts I used to wake up to vanished. Good morning, beautiful, thinking of you, gone. Evenings that once ended with a phone call, full of silly jokes and late-night nothingness, were replaced by short, intermittent check-ins. Conversations that used to crackle with humor and warmth began to feel perfunctory, like we were speaking different languages. I noticed her body language shift, avoiding my arms when I reached out, crossing her arms in mid-conversation, avoiding eye contact when she talked. Subtle signals, but they accumulated. It was as though she'd mentally checked out, while I remained anchored. Every question I asked to understand her mood. Everything all right? Are you okay at work? Was met with vague answers, just busy. A lot going on, work's been hectic. Her distractions felt like walls growing between us. As a result, insecurity crept in. I replayed everything I'd done wrong. Did I forget her favorite coffee? Did I not call enough? Had I grown complacent? I wondered if love could suffocate slowly by neglect, leaving two people in the same space but far apart. The turning point came on a quiet Thursday night. We were sitting at the dining table, plates half cleared, wine glasses half empty, warm lighting casting soft shadows. The conversation felt flat. I looked at her and said the words I'd feared. "Sarah, what's going on? You've been off lately." Did I do something wrong? Her response was quiet but firm. No, it's not you. I just feel like I need some space. I don't know what's wrong with me. Her tone was distant, matter of fact. It struck me like a punch. We weren't fighting. There was no massive event awaiting closure. Nothing had happened, at least, not that I knew. I had replayed every moment in my mind, desperate to identify a mistake, an oversight. She said she felt lost, insisted she was fine, that she just needed to clear her head. Those words haunted me for days. They echoed around my thoughts in the night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining every happy moment twisted by her detachment. I realized love can evaporate not in one blow, but through countless small withdrawals. A week later, we had another talk. Her anxiety was more visible now, nervous gestures, wringing hands, eyes scanning the table before settling on me. She drew a deep breath and told me she wanted a break. She tried to frame it as temporary, not a breakup, just time apart to figure out what she wanted. Please understand, this isn't ending us. I just need to kind of step back, take a break from us. Her voice shook with emotion. I felt torn between reaching for her and bracing for collapse. I froze, unable to respond immediately. I needed clarity. I asked, breath trembling, "What exactly do you need to figure out?" Her answer came slowly. She said she'd been talking to someone at work, someone named Kyle. It wasn't serious, she claimed, nothing physical. But that person had made her question what she wanted. When I pressed, "Are you seeing him?" she replied, "No, I swear. I haven't done anything physical." Yet the emotional vagueness felt like betrayal by design. She was allowing another emotional intimacy to blossom while keeping our relationship on pause. That's when I realized the nature of her break. To give space for new feelings while preserving the comfort of the old relationship. Emotional cheating without breaking any defined boundary. In that moment of silence, my heart dropped. The room felt heavier. Her admission without physical betrayal still constituted betrayal. Talking to someone was shorthand for emotional surrender. The connection we'd built, where everyday routines felt sacred, seemed like a fragile illusion. The plans I had made, proposal, house keys, forever, felt ripped from my grasp. The fantasy dissolved into dishonest ambiguity. I looked at her and felt a rupture too wide to repair. Love, I realized, needs presence. When presence fades, apologies come too late. I no longer wanted explanations, just truth. We sat in that heavy silence. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. I absorbed the betrayal in quiet resolve. Packing began in my mind. I could feel distance setting in even before I physically made space. I realized love held no leverage over someone who chose confusion over clarity, emotional wandering over honesty. That was enough to show me she was already halfway gone. Other conversations, other plans, other laughter were forming in her mind while mine still played the old soundtrack. And so, I stayed silent. I observed her face, eyes uncertain, soul slipping away. I recognized the end, not in dramatic arguments, but in subtle emotional drift. I accepted that break would be the beginning of goodbye. That night, I left alone in thought, haunted by the parting words that never mentioned me. Just her needing space. And in that need, I felt the truth that I would no longer be her pause. She said it wasn't physical. That was supposed to make it better. But to me, it didn't. Because emotional betrayal is still betrayal. Maybe worse. It means the feelings, the connection, that used to be ours had been handed over to someone else. Quietly, without warning, without honesty. I stared at her in that moment, really stared, and realized she wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she hadn't been for a while. "You should have told me sooner," I said, my voice tight and low. Before letting me think we were okay. She looked away, the shame or guilt, or maybe just discomfort, briefly flickering in her eyes. I didn't know how. I was confused. "You don't go looking for clarity in someone else's bed or heart," I snapped, and immediately regretted the bitterness, but it was too late. The fracture was there, and now it was splitting everything wide open. We sat in silence for a while. She didn't apologize. I didn't press her to. I think we both knew we had crossed a line that we couldn't come back from. She moved out the next day, said she'd stay with a friend for a while. I watched her pack, her favorite mug, her sweaters, that silly plant she'd named Theo, and it was surreal. She didn't cry. I didn't either. But something inside me cracked, quiet and deep, like ice breaking beneath your feet on a frozen lake. You don't feel the danger until it's too late, until you're already sinking. In the days that followed, the house felt too big. I'd walk into the kitchen expecting to see her perched on the counter, sipping tea and scrolling on her phone. I'd wake up to the smell of nothing. No coffee brewing, no soft humming in the bathroom. Her absence wasn't just physical. It echoed. It lingered in the space she left behind. At first, I kept hoping it was temporary, that she'd come back with clarity, with regret. But weeks passed, and nothing. I didn't hear from her. Mutual friends were awkward, unsure what to say. And then one of them let it slip. Kyle wasn't just someone she was talking to. They were dating now, openly, at work, holding hands in the office cafeteria like they hadn't bulldozed through a 5-year relationship. The night I found out, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about all the nights I spent picturing our future while she was picturing something else, someone else. That's the part that cuts the deepest. You can't measure betrayal by the act alone. It's the time, the moments, the dreams you shared that suddenly feel like lies. Still, I didn't reach out. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I let her go. Maybe out of pride. Maybe out of pain. Maybe because deep down, I knew that anything she came back to now would just be out of guilt or loneliness, not love. But I broke. Not all at once, more like in layers. I started skipping meals. My work suffered. My friends tried checking in, but I became a master of half-hearted replies. The only thing I poured myself into was that house, the one I bought for us. I kept it. I moved in alone. And then, little by little, I rebuilt it. I ripped out the bathroom tiles we once picked together and replaced them myself. I painted over the bedroom walls she said she loved. I sold the couch we bought on that weekend trip to AITA. I needed to erase the version of life we were supposed to live together. The healing didn't happen fast or cleanly. I dated a bit, but nothing serious. A few dinners, some polite conversation, but I couldn't really connect. How could I? My heart was still buried under the rubble of what Sarah and I used to be. I stopped trying after a while. Told myself I was fine alone. A year passed, then 2. And one morning, I woke up and realized I didn't think about her every day anymore. That was the first sign. I wasn't healed, not completely, but I wasn't broken either. I went back to the gym, took a cooking class, traveled to Italy, alone. I walked through the streets of Florence and thought, this is what freedom feels like. Not the absence of love, but the absence of pain. Then, one night, I met someone. Not on a dating app, not through friends, just random. A bookstore downtown. She was looking for a novel I'd just finished, and we got to talking. Her name was Rachel. She had this energy about her, confident but not arrogant, curious about the world. We started talking over coffee, then dinner. Then it became something more. I didn't fall fast. I was cautious, guarded even. But Rachel was patient. She never pushed. She asked questions that made me think. Listened. Really listened. And for the first time in a long time, I found myself laughing the way I used to. The kind of laugh that leaves you breathless, not because it's funny, but because it's real. Months later, when we were sitting on the porch of my house, I told her about Sarah. Not everything, just enough. I needed her to know where I came from. And she didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, it sounds like she didn't deserve the version of you that loved her. I didn't reply. I couldn't. But those words stuck with me. Then, almost 3 years after Sarah walked out, I saw her again. At a cafe near my office. She was alone. Looked tired. Older somehow. Not in years, but in spirit. We locked eyes. She froze. I gave a polite nod and kept walking. But she called my name. Hey, wait. I stopped. Turned around. She smiled, awkward. You look good. Thanks, I replied. You too. A pause. She shifted uncomfortably. Can we talk? Just for a second. We sat at a table. It was strange, familiar and foreign all at once. She asked how I was. Told me Kyle had left her. Said it wasn't what she thought it would be. That he wasn't built for long term. I nodded, sipped my coffee. She looked at me like she was searching for something. Hope maybe, or a crack in my expression. But I gave her nothing. I made a mistake, she finally said. I was scared. I got in my own head and I ran. From everything. From you. I didn't reply immediately. I didn't know what to say. I'd played this conversation in my head 1,000 times. Imagined what I'd say if I ever saw her again. But now that it was happening, it didn't feel triumphant. It just felt sad. I'm happy now, I finally said. I've moved on. She blinked. Is there someone else? Yes. She nodded, looked down at her hands. I'm glad. You deserve it. We parted with a handshake. No promises. No bitterness. Just closure. Quiet, overdue closure. And when I walked away from that table, it felt like finishing the last page of a book that had once meant everything to me, but no longer defined my story. Sarah had been a chapter. A painful one. But not the whole story. Rachel and I got engaged last spring. We're getting married in the fall, in that same backyard I once dreamed of sharing with Sarah. The difference is, this time, it's real. There are no secrets, no uncertainty. Just two people who've been through the storm and came out stronger. Sometimes I still think about the past. About who I used to be. About the man who once thought love was enough to fix anything. I don't resent him. I don't resent Sarah, either. Not anymore. Because without that heartbreak, I wouldn't have become the man I am now. A man who understands that love isn't just about butterflies or sparks or surprises. It's about choice, about showing up when it's hard, about staying when it's inconvenient, about building something slowly, intentionally, with someone who's in it with you, fully. And for that, I'm grateful. Because in losing Sarah, I found myself. And eventually, I found real love, the kind that doesn't need to be chased, explained, or rescued. It just is.